Hey, before we go on this little walk and talk, I just want to say, whoever you may be, wherever you are, thanks for stopping by. I know it's kind of absurd, given that this is going up into the inscrutable cloud of the internet, but I'm going to say it anyway. I hope we get to meet one day in person and talk for real. All right, let's go. When I was super young, probably like 6 or 7, I think that was when the idea of God first entered my mind. Now, my parents had just started going to church at that time too, and so everything was new for them as well. All my feeble child brain could grasp, I think, was the fact that God had made the world. He lived somewhere up in the sky, and I could somehow talk to him by praying. And so that's what I did. I remember small moments laying awake in bed at night, talking to this God who I couldn't see, asking him questions, hearing silence sometimes, but also sometimes hearing a voice. Now, before you think to yourself, this guy needs help, let me explain. As I got older, I realized something. This voice that I attributed to God, he sounded a lot like me. It said a lot of things I agreed with. It generally affirmed my emotions. And even when it was contrary to me, I knew that it was actually expressing an idea that was really my idea deep down that I was in denial of for whatever reason at the time. And then it was later on in high school, late high school, early university. And this was when I started getting into philosophy. I had to come to face the real possibility of an inconvenient truth. This idea that the God I was talking to most of the time probably was just myself, my own projection of God, my own ideals, my dreams, my hopes, my ambitions, my frustrations. I had basically made a God in my own image. And so that's kind of when I came to the cliche fork in the road. I could either accept the fact that God did not exist and be my own God and be in charge of my own life and bask in this radical existential freedom that this Nietzsche guy kept going on and on about. Or I could keep on believing in God and actually try and start getting to know him for real. Now I have to say, that first path, being my own God, was really tempting. I mean, just the idea of just this radical freedom to make my own meaning in my own life was intoxicating. And it just made sense at the time. You know, after all, we're just all human beings trying to make sense of our time here on earth and, trying to make our own meaning. And a lot of people would resonate with something like that. And a lot of people would stop here. But for my own life story, I just wasn't satisfied with this happy ending. I still had too many questions. Why did I still feel so internally conflicted all the time? Why did this existential freedom that was supposed to be so liberating feel so scary at the same time? Why did I feel like a ship without a sail and an anchor? As I, thought about my own existence and all this stuff, I kept coming back into circles and circles. I couldn't get over this one thing I couldn't resolve in my own mind. And it was the fact that outside of me, there's this whole world the beauty and magnitude of which I could not possibly explain or imagine in its entirety. And in this whole world, there were billions of people who, inside of them, all contained whole universes of thought, desires, emotions, hopes, dreams, all of them just like me. Now, the big question was, where did all this come from? Where did we all come from? Now, the meager and popular understanding of science that I had was, it's all random. The cosmic luck of the draw. But again, even though I knew this wasn't impossible, and logically it was possible that this was the case, I just didn't find satisfaction with this answer. It didn't seem to do justice to the beauty, the glorious beauty of all that exists. It still felt like somewhere out there, something or someone was responsible for all of this. And that my whole being, my whole person, my heart, mind, and soul, they were all drawn to getting to know this being with a capital B. Now that's a bit of my story. There's more to it, obviously, but that's enough for now. And I'm sorry if it's a little bit drawn out, but the reason I tell it is because I don't think it's unique at all. In fact, I think there's a lot to my story that may sound familiar to you. Maybe you've felt these things before. Maybe you've asked these same questions. That's where theology comes into play. Now, the boring standard definition of theology is it's the study of God, plain and simple. But that definition kind of makes it seem like theology is just something that if you're already interested in it, then you're going to go ahead and study it. But for everyone else, it's a non-factor, it's irrelevant. But let's think of theology this way instead. It's the simple, honest, humble attempt to search for God, to get to know Him, to experience Him, and to be conscious of our beliefs about Him and to be intentional about sorting out these beliefs and seeing whether they are consistent with our experience of reality. In my own journey, in my own search, I found answers in the Christian faith. Reading the Bible, learning that, God is the creator of the world and that He loves His creation so much that He came down in the flesh as a human being, as Jesus Christ in history, to be with us, to dwell with us. And then also learning that even though there's evil and suffering in the world, God has acted decisively out of love to bridge the gap between us and Him. Learning all of these things, it just seemed to make best sense of the world, as I saw it. Now, in your own journeys, you may have settled on different answers. Or maybe you're still searching. Or maybe you're asking, what's the point of all of this? I respect that. I really do. I guess the main takeaway that I want all of us to consider today, and that I just leave with you all, is this honest search for God, this theology, it does matter. It matters because this search involves our whole person. All the powers of our reason, all our hopes and dreams, for this life and what lies beyond. All of it is connected to this search. That's why theology matters. And, even if you don't consider yourself a religious person, maybe doing a little bit of theology at the very least is a beneficial exercise in self-understanding. But I really believe that we all need to do some theology sooner or later. Because it points to the ultimate longing in our lives. And, some of us may feel this longing less urgently than others, but I think we all feel it eventually. Who knows? If we all do some theology, we may end up with more than just self-knowledge. We may end up encountering the real, living God. I guess we've arrived. Thanks for your time. I'll see you around.